Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Hopefully you enjoyed that conversation with Fati Abubakar, the information minister designate. But at this point, this is where I get to free my mind, like we say in our local parlance. Share my blunt thoughts with you, Ghana 4. My name is Benjamin Akapo. Thank you for staying. I've titled it today, A Shuffling of Cards and a Bleeding Democracy. Ghana, stand up. A shuffling of cards and a bleeding democracy. Ghana, stand up. Stand up? Why? You know, there's this saying that if you don't stand for yourself, no one likely will stand up for you. And that is why standing up begins with you, just as your security begins with you. There's also this quote I'd like to start off with. It says, a vote is a kind of prayer about the kind of world you want to live in. A vote is a kind of prayer about the kind of world you want to live in. And that, of course, is by Reverend Raphael Warnock. It all feeds into the conversation I'm about to have with you. Two major matters I'm going to talk to you about. The reshuffle, first of all, and Ghana on the Democracy Index. So with this reshuffle, personally, I've had to ask myself, why now? For example, with Ken Ofori-Atta, it's been a year and a half since his own side, his own team in Parliament, moved for him to be ousted on certain grounds. The question is, why now? When I was engaging Fati Abubakar a few minutes ago, I asked her that whether there was sufficient time to do anything. They have now been thrust into these offices. Technically, it will take till around March, getting into April, before they can hit the ground running. Between April and November, how much can be done? At least for Fati and other, you could say that, yes, they'll continue with the work. But in a place like the Finance Ministry, the IMF deal is done and dusted. The tax situation is what it is. Everything else, what is going to change? Which brings me to some of these, the reshuffle in government and some of the other dynamics. 19 ministers and deputies have been sacked. 15 ministers and deputies were also sacked. 6 ministers and deputies reassigned, and 5 female appointments were made. I'm particularly excited about the 5 appointments that were made. Let's go to the next slide. But if you look at the tail of the tape over time, from the proposal that Bawumia is making to what Akufo-Addo started with, in his first term, he had 126 ministers. 126. Then, after a lot of talk, it was whittled down in the second term to 86. That has been maintained after the reshuffle. Some feel this was an opportunity missed to still cut down, trim the numbers even further. And then we look at the promises now. There you have former President Mahama, who had over 70 or 80 at a point. He says he can do with 60. The vice president and flag bearer of the MPP says he will do with 50. At some other point, we'll go into the dynamics of practically what a 60 or 50 can do, whether it's practical. But next slide. It took 466 days for Ken Ofori-Atta to be removed after protests. Like I said, 1.5 years, 466, which is why some people have asked, why now? What effect will it have? And even more importantly, getting to the point of Franklin Cudjoe, right? He says, according to Assassin News sources in the office of the president, Ken Ofori-Atta will serve as the president's special envoy on international investment and capital markets. This was actually before even the proper document was read out in Parliament by the Speaker, meaning he will be in charge of negotiating most of the big deals. He is now bigger than the Ministry of Finance. Technically, if you look at the role as the envoy, special envoy on international investment, what it literally means is that whenever we're going to have these international engagements and all of that, Ken Ofori-Atta will be right in the thick of things. And when we are signing, Ken Ofori-Atta will still be there. Yes, and he is the special aide, right, advising the president on the economy. So is it soldier go, soldier come, or is it soldier go, and we don't really know. But that is the thinking of Franklin Cudjoe. Dr. John Osai Kwapong, who is a democracy and governance fellow at the CDD, had this to ask. There are 2 central questions emerging from this reshuffle. Why now, and what difference will it make? So yes, we've got the reshuffle, but So, is it a meh situation? Politically, if this had been done a year or two ago, it may have allowed the administration to win back some of the good graces it once enjoyed at a high level from Ghanaians. I ask you, what does this mean to you today? Any difference? It's yours to decide. Then we also have Professor Ali Duseidu. He thinks, and he is head of department at the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. I think the timing will not help, even with the best of people with skills, to make a meaningful impact, given the time that we have. Time, crucial. The president dragged his feet all this while until now, so people may think that this particular reshuffle is introducing new talents full of youthful people, but will they have the time and be able to exhibit the talents they have? And that is where some people even feel that it may be a disservice to these people, because they will not have the time to prove themselves, and they may not get the opportunity to be there in a future government, because it could either go with the NPP, and who knows whether the NPP's candidate would bring them back. It could go the way of the NDC or some other party, and who knows whether those people would be handpicked. What then have we done to them? But then we proceed. There's also Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Director for Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the CDD. He says the questions to ask are why now and what is the added governance value of the reshuffle with about 9 months to go to the elections. Mind you, they don't even have 9 months. They are coming through from after March. It is also important that the new leadership tries to be more consultative and build consensus on the interventions that will promote consolidation, growth, and a path to transformation. So these are some of the thoughts that they've been sharing. But even as I talk about these, I am also worried about the democracy index and where Ghana finds itself. And it's an even bigger situation. You look at the corruption perception index, we've stagnated, 43. 3 years back to back. And you look at the metrics, we are not making progress. In fact, some people like the former Auditor General Daniel Yao Domelevo said that he was surprised that we were even still where we were. Then you go to the press freedom rankings. 2 years back to back, Ghana has dropped points. We've been moving downward in the annual global press freedom rankings by Reporters Without Borders. All of that is in there. Then you come to the democracy ranking as well. Now, the trend from 2006 to 2023 will show you that we had a score of 5.35 in 2006, which was maintained in 2008. Then in 2010, it shot up to 6.02. It was maintained all the way till 2012. Then 6.33, maintained 2014, 2015. The highest we've ever had, 2016, 6.86. Since that time, it has been dwindling. 6.75, 6.69, 6.33, 6.5, and now 6.3. And that was 2023. Now, what are the dynamics and why do we keep slipping on this performance index? Let's go to the next slide. You would realize that, again, going back to what I mentioned, the global rank for Ghana in 2022 was 63rd. In 2023, we were 65th. In Sub-Saharan Africa, 4th. In 2022, 5th in 2023. Next slide. But then, what are the measures? What is the metric? What is the standard that is used? Electoral processes and pluralism, functioning of government, political participation, political culture, civil liberties. All of these are metrics that are used. And you would see that in terms of electoral process and pluralism, we score pretty high, 8.33 out of 10. Political participation, 6.67, and political culture, 5.63, civil liberties, 5.88. But in terms of the function of government, that is where we appear to be getting it wrong. And you look at the score, 5 out of 10. You may say 5 is not that bad, but you compare to other countries, even within the sub-region, even on the continent, and you realize that this is where the problem really lies. So if you look at all of these metrics, corruption perception index, press freedom index, democratic development index, the question to ask is, why is it that in all of these areas, we seem not to be making tracks? Why? So reshuffle, is it going to impact our governance really? Is it going to shape anything? All I will say is leave you with the words of a very famous man, George Carlin, who says, listen, all of these decisions we're making, right? All of these things we talk about, it's also an encouragement for you to exercise your franchise come November or December, whichever way the Electoral Commission goes. He says if you don't vote, you lose the right to complain. There was a point when I didn't vote for long periods in this country because I felt, Dukadaya situation all the same. But in the end, if we don't exercise the franchise, we lose the right to complain. And those are my thoughts for you this morning. Let's read the fine print of all these promises people are making. Let's reach out for people who can change our dynamics for real. My name is Benjamin Akako. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you this morning, raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. God bless Ghana and make her truly great and strong.